what does God want for you? What is your purpose in life? And so this is the foundational question you get it the first day you arrive.
Welcome to the Value Factory Podcast, brought to you by One Accord. We're all about helping businesses thrive and grow through leadership, strategy, and meaningful impact. Now, whether you're a seasoned executive or just starting out, our goal is to provide insights and inspiration to help you navigate your journey. Thanks for tuning in.
Chris, it's good to have you here.
I appreciate you having me.
Good. So we're here with Chris Cazares with Polaris Injury Law. Now, Chris and I, we've been friends for a while. We've known each other, seen each other across the room time and time again. But we hang out every Wednesday at a group called Seattle Execs. And from that, I'm happy to say our friendship has grown and deepened. So I'm happy to have you here at the Value Factory.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah. We were talking at lunch the other day, which made me think there are things that you know that listeners, folks in our audience, people that you might want to hear. Not even might want to hear, that you will want to hear. Before we get into that, let's let everybody know about you. Some of your CV, your background, your history. How did you end up here in the PNW at Polaris?
Yep. I was originally born and raised El Paso, Texas. So cerca de Mexico, like right on the border. You can't get any closer. You can throw a rock and hit I-10 from Mexico. So when people go to visit, they're like, well, how close is it? And you're like, just look right there. That's it. So that was interesting because when I was growing up, El Paso's a pretty isolated place. Like there wasn't a lot around geographically. The closest big city probably was San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, and all are upwards of 8 to 12 hours of driving. So the closest influence you get is New Mexico, and flying wasn't, family, it wasn't as predominant as it is today. I say all that because the culture itself, where I'm from, is very warm. Like it's a very warm family environment. And so when I left for the first time and I went to law school in Los Angeles, it was a very different experience. And then I went into the Air Force as a judge advocate general. So I was a prosecutor, then defense attorney, and then ultimately I defended 2 different Guantanamo Bay detainees, and then became a senior prosecutor for the Air Force, all on the way out. So I still serve today. I am in the Guard, but a lot of my experience in the way I look at the legal world is from the perspective of a criminal prosecutor or a criminal defense attorney. And that's how I found personal injury.
There's a lot there.
Yeah.
First, I want to say thank you for serving our country.
Thank you for your support.
Yeah. And Judge Advocate General. That's JAG, right? Mm-hmm. Just learn that. Learn something new. Yeah. So you are defending people in the military court? What do we call that?
Court martial.
Court martial. Okay. That's a unique environment.
If you ever saw A Few Good Men, it's with Tom Cruise. Interestingly enough, procedurally, it was pretty close. Like you're right? Like, oh, that's a court martial. Even to the Marine judge, every other service wears a robe, but a Marine is like, no, I don't need to put on a robe. I'm gonna wear my uniform right up here. So they nailed it. Okay,
all right. And there's some experience in Guantanamo Bay. That's also unique. Not many people in the world go there. For good reason.
Right.
Yeah.
At the time, it was between administrations, so George Bush was the president, and that's when I was originally serving. So I had gotten there. I was in my duty station is Washington, D.C., but you fly down to Guantanamo Bay or Gitmo, and they were really ramping up they call them military commissions. So not a court martial, a military commission, and that was ramping up. And when President Barack Obama was elected, things began to ramp down, and my whole what I loved doing at the time was getting experience in the courtroom. I thought it's the most fascinating thing to see human behavior.
I can see, okay, you see human behavior. We'll get into that, but I can see you as a litigator. So Chris is serving as the president of the Seattle Executives Group that we are in, and it's so fun to watch you at the podium, engaging with the audience, and I can just see you in a courtroom with a judge, with a jury. There's something there. You have like the performance quality of a TV attorney. That's my only, limited experience in court, praise the Lord.
Yeah.
but what I see from you looks like the showman of a litigator that's going to actually work a jury. If I'm saying that and it's like, oh gosh, no, that is that a good thing? And did I just compliment you or insult you? I don't know.
Well, depending on who you are, either one. No, I think it's a great point. What my perspective is, you get to practice a lot of things in life. You practice your faith, you practice the law. And so practicing the law means, 20 years ago, I took my first jump into a court martial. And over time, I've had a lot of instruction. But what it comes down to, what you see now is, before I used to be in court and I would do what I wanted to do. And that doesn't resonate. Like, you can't, I've learned that it's all about connection. And so what you see at Seattle Execs is, I'm dying to connect with whoever it is that I'm speaking with, or whatever I'm trying to convey. So the performative aspect is the desire to keep whoever's attention so they can hear what is being said by myself or someone else. And it ends up being less, it feels less like a script.
Yeah.
And more like a conversation.
Totally. Just have some water. It's good. Cold. So the observation is not that you are scripted, but more that you are engaged and like really attentive. Somebody might say something here while you're talking, and then 90 seconds later you come back and pull that into the conversation.
Yeah, it's
a real connection that it's a unique gift. So compliment from me. Okay, so there's military service, court martial, JAG, school in LA, law school, like
yes.
Undergrad law school,
just law school.
Okay, how did you end up in the Pacific Northwest?
When I graduated from law school, I knew I didn't want to practice in California. And California they don't have reciprocity with other states. So if you're going to go practice someplace else, you can't just wave in after 4 years. So I had to pick someplace else. And my brother was serving in the Navy at Whidbey Island. It's like, Chris, why don't you just come up to here? You can have free rent. I'm deploying, so you can stay at my place. And I thought that was a great deal. Mm-hmm. And so I came up to Washington. At the time, it was, I'll spare you the bloody details of what the bar exam was, but ultimately, I took the exam and I was stationed at F.E. Warren Air Force Base. So the reason to come up to the Pacific Northwest was, it was just convenient. It was, oh, my brother's there. And when I left, I remember thinking to myself, wow, this is a beautiful place. I'll never live here. But it's really beautiful because I always intended to go back to Texas.
Okay. And then you came back.
I did come back. I thought at the time, the practice of law, I think for me, every room has a feeling. Every community has a feeling. And practicing personal injury, or trying to practice personal injury, as I was making my escape from criminal defense after 15 years, getting married, having a kid, the content itself is like, well, I've done that long enough. I want to feel something different. And the feeling is helping people. Like when you get into personal injury, on the other side of this conversation, this relationship with your client, it feels like some bad thing happened to an innocent person and you're just there to help them. That's it. Like, my job's to help you. In criminal world, one way or the other, if you're on the prosecution or the defense, it feels like a bad thing happened and another bad thing is about to happen. Whether you're on the, if somebody goes to prison for 100 years or whatever you think should happen, or they're found not guilty, people, the way they feel about that case, they're so emotionally invested. And when I look at personal injury, my job as a prosecutor for plaintiff's work is to deliver the truth. So it's really morally easy for me to do. Like, I love that I get to practice just telling the truth, but also that the person on the other end of it very well may be in a better situation. Like, one way or the other, like they've learned some new life skills, whatever that looks like, but it's the journey feels like hope. The journey in criminal world for me, it felt like dread, like in the emotional energy that goes to preparing a case, because one way or the other, you're working really hard to see that justice is served, but the emotional consequence of that, it doesn't just stay with you in the case or at the office. It definitely will come home with you.
Wow. I'm just sitting into that. And let me have you come just a little closer. There we go. It's good. Not too awkward, but good.
It's good.
What a journey and a set of experiences. You said earlier, observing human behavior. Did I hear that right?
Yep.
What do you observe? Like what? Big question. What do you see?
For me, I see motivation. Like, if somebody is a motivated witness, they'll change something. But I mean, taking a bigger lens, observing human behavior means you're watching people in different roles. So in this situation, if we're sending emails back and forth, a person may show up one way because they're behind a screen. If we're now taking a deposition and I'm asking questions, they're probably showing up very different because there's something of consequence now, like maybe they're being recorded. But the reason I love jury trial is the most beautiful thing is to watch somebody take the stand, raise their right hand, and have 24 eyeballs on them. And people they change. And so, like, the weight of the moment, most people, they're not public speakers, right? They show up and they're like, oh, even if they had said something different, when the weight of what the truth is in front of them, and they don't know, there's nowhere to go, you will see testimony change.
Man. I can just, what can I relate that to? I can relate that to my kids. When you catch them in the act, right? And they just can't not, even though they're good at, deception sometimes, which they are, but the weight of the truth, like, I'm feeling that in the moment. I'm imagining being on the witness stand and having to testify and understanding the gravity of the situation. Do you get to depose all of the witnesses do you get to talk to them on the other side before going into the courtroom?
You may depose all of the witnesses. You can really depose anybody you think is relevant to your case. It's obviously it's not without expense. So, being tactically mindful of what's important, what do I need to know is really the question. But you can take as many depositions as you like.
And in that, do you see that it's different? Someone in a deposition in a conference room somewhere being interviewed shows up differently than being on the witness stand?
I do, and I took a lesson from a pretty famous trial lawyer this last couple years, and the comment they made to our office was like, if a deposition is worth taking, you should record it. And that drives up expense. But what you see is that when somebody's just talking and there's no camera, it's not the same when the testimony is reread to the jury, like, oh, you said this on this date. Oh, okay, like, I don't get it. When you see somebody and they can see the camera and you're replaying it for the jury, it's a whole different feeling. So if you took just your first example, like, okay, I took Nick's deposition, he said these things. Okay, jury, like, this is what he heard, this is what he said. If you went and you advanced that, and now I'm like, Your Honor, the plaintiff calls Nick Anderson. And then you march up there in front of all of the people, raise your right hand, swear to tell the truth. The mere fact that 24 people, the judge, the defense counsel, the plaintiff, we're all looking for something, and it's from the witness. That moment, some people, like if you watch an expert, they've testified so many times it's like nothing. And in some ways they become less believable for even the jury.
Oh, an expert witness, because
they're so polished.
Yeah.
Like they're just going through it. They may or may not have a performative piece, but the gravity of the situation is not weighing on them. But ultimately, you will either have a good day or a bad day based simply on your ability to tell the truth that day.
Wow. And there's no second chance. You don't get to go back up and say, like, oh, sorry, what I meant to say was, because you've already made the impression as the witness, you've already made the impression on the jury.
I think that's, like, you brought it back to your kids and like that moment where they've been caught.
Yeah.
I also think that there's this moment where people, when they are delivering the truth, what it looks like to the jury is like, I'm not caught. Like I'm giving you what you need to know to make a decision. That's why I'm here today, is to help you make a decision. And that's what ultimately every witness in your case is there for a purpose, or should be there for a purpose and a reason to help the jury, the conscience of the community, make a decision for the benefit of the community. It's really like when we have heard there's too many lawsuits being filed. There aren't enough lawsuits being filed. We hear we need more settlements. That's what we used to hear. Now we're like, there's no trials. The beauty of the community, Nick, is that it's a participatory event. It is a participatory event to be a juror. It is a participatory event to file a lawsuit. And it is a participatory event for these folks to make a decision for the benefit of the community, knowing it will change somebody's life.
Yeah.
Like so all of that consequences, like it's right there. And I find, like, recently that the one thing we get excited to vote. Who'd you vote for? And nobody wants to do jury duty. And yet your vote over here is one of 12. And your vote over there is one of millions. And this one is about your neighborhood. And for some reason, we have looked away from the jury trial as being an effective means of human development. I think that practice of requiring people to tell the truth, of demanding that they answer for what has happened in your community, there's nowhere else like it. Other countries call JAGs in, attorneys in, to study our Constitution so they can have something that even resembles what we do here.
You're moving me in this moment. Need some more water? I'm going to fill mine up. I'm digging this, man. You're fun. You definitely have a passion about your calling. Do you see it that way? Do you see law as a calling? Like,
yeah. So for me, I was blessed to go to an all-boy Catholic school. Some people wouldn't say it that way, but my experience was when I went to public school, it was really difficult, and I was on the wrong path. There was fights, there was distractions. I'll leave out the details. And my best friend went to a school, an all-boy private school, and it's a Lasallian Christian Brothers school. And so they take vows of celibacy, poverty, and humility, and it's all in the name of Jesus to serve people, these children, to help educate them. And I was, at the time, I was so moved by like, oh wow, like you would do all that for me. It was wild. And I left that school for a semester because I thought the grass was greener, and I went back to public school. And I learned at public school that whether my teachers liked me, they didn't love me. Because the question at Cathedral was, what does God want for you? What is your purpose in life? And so this is the foundational question. You get it the first day you arrive, or even when you're applying.
In what grade?
So that's, I was a freshman in high school.
What is your purpose as a freshman?
What's your purpose? What has God made you for? And I thought that question was the best question I'd ever heard.
So freshman in high school is 14, 15 years old. That's my son's freshman in high school. Wow. That in and of itself is a gift, to be challenged into that level of thinking. And, I'm going to say very few people would get their purpose accurate at 14. But I think everybody, here's my thing. We all need purpose in life. I'm speaking with a man earlier today who started a company, and he's been very successful, and he's young. He's under 50. And he's saying, I've been at this for, I think the number was 12 years. Let's call it 10 years. I'm not sure I can grow my company bigger than it is today without help, which is why we're talking. And I'm not sure I even want to. Maybe it's time for me to just cash in the chips. But at 48, 49 years old, what am I going to do on the other side of that? And he says, there's no way that I can stop doing what I'm doing, sell the company, let's say, and then just play golf and travel all the time. Like, it sounds sexy, but it doesn't last, right? Because there's no purpose behind that. And so our conversation, his and my conversation this morning, centered around, okay, well, let's, over the next 2 years, plan for a really successful exit and really start to identify your directional purpose. Not your specific purpose, but a directional purpose. Because on the other side of this thing, you're going to have a whole lot of time. And by the way, you're going to have a fair bit of money, and a lot of people are going to invite you in to do things, which happens when people sell their business, and you can get distracted without having a clear directional purpose.
Right.
So, back to, you're a freshman in high school and you get asked this question. Did you know the answer?
No. And that's what I loved. I loved that they didn't expect us to know the answer, but what they promised was, God has something for you. And you're like, wait a minute. Something greater than myself would have a meaning for me. And what I took from that was, to be seen, to be heard, to be wanted. That's a huge driver for me. So I was like, I am game to find out what God would have for me. So as I traveled down my path of discernment, what I've over time found that I love helping people. And it's taken different forms. I've been a high school football coach. I've been a teacher. I've worked to become a therapist, but all in the name of service of other, because frankly, that the feeling I get when I help is, it's not, oh, look at me, I'm helping. It's, wow, I get to observe somebody. I get to be in the presence of watching somebody go from point A to point B. Coaching is a fantastic role when you get to watch somebody develop from who they were to what they have become, and you walk alongside them. I think of what you do in business, and you see people transform all the time, and they getting from point A to point B is an easy description. Getting from the role to what they will become, it's a humbling place to be. So anyways, I sat there.
Yeah.
I didn't find that until probably my freshman year of college, where I was like, or sophomore, I would like to find, I saw, like, I think it was John Grisham's A Time to Kill.
Yeah.
A Time to Kill was such a great movie and an even better book. But that particular movie, like that action in the courtroom, that we all can figure out something for this person, this family. It was, something's happening in the courtroom. It's like action is happening.
Yeah. I read all of Grisham's books when I was in high school.
Me too.
He was so good.
Me
so
too.
good. Connecting into this notion of helping, you were in JAG, you were a defense attorney. Is that the right?
Yep, I started off. The Air Force is great. They start you off as a junior prosecutor. And you have some other job, and they want you to get the experience, because somebody's life in your hands, like your responsibility. You have to have some level of training. So you get the perspective of, I've learned how to prove my case. Now I'm going to switch to the other side, and I will defend somebody.
I'm going to get a little patriotic here. Just how beautiful is it that even inside our own military, we provide defense counsel. I mean, I can just imagine that there are so many cases that seem open and shut. I don't even know if that language is the right way to say it, but that everyone in the country has the right to a fair trial. And you said earlier that you would say there's not enough litigation.
There's not enough jury trials. There's plenty of litigation.
Okay.
There's not enough folks going into the courtroom and allowing the community to make a decision on your case.
So I have been I've been raising my kids to the best of my ability to understand the law, which that sounds like a really big statement. It isn't. Listen, I'm like, everything I get, I learned from watching Suits. But what I say to my kids is, like, even with a traffic infraction, you are innocent until proven guilty. The legal system, this is what I say to them, is not a just system of justice. It's a legal system. I'd love to hear your input on this. But it's a legal system, and there are rules of order, and this is the way that you play the game. And so if you get a speeding ticket, you have the right to argue that in front of a judge. You don't have to just say yes and send in your check. Not that I'm encouraging my kids to speed. I don't know what all kinds of comments are going to show up in the feed here, but that's what you do. You say, no, and I want to actually plead my case in front of a judge. That's the system. And when we take that and extrapolate it from a traffic infraction to something much bigger, that's what the system, as I understand it, is built, is designed, is intended for. That we can argue our cases in front of a jury of our peers, we can be heard, present all of the evidence, and settle disputes that we can't work out between ourselves. Am I way off track?
I love it.
Okay. So then you today sit in the plaintiff's seat, which is similar to the prosecutor seat, but you don't work for the city, the state, the federal government, the JAG. I'm saying this right? You represent someone who is bringing a case against another party with is accusation the right word? With an accusation of some wrongdoing?
A complaint.
A complaint. Okay. because otherwise that person couldn't just go to this other party and say, listen, here's my complaint. I believe that to make things fair, you should do whatever A, B, and C are. Most of the time it's money, right? Pay for medical expenses, pay for damages, whatnot. The system is pretty complicated in that a plaintiff would have a very hard time representing themselves in that complaint in the context of the system.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah. So in other words, I can't just sue my neighbor over a tree that he cut down in my backyard and know all of the rules to the system.
That's right.
So really, I've got to hire you or someone to represent me that knows the rules to the system.
That's right.
Okay. What is it? What do you? How do I even frame this? Like, how do you get started with someone who says, "I got a complaint. This help me argue this complaint." Like, you don't take everyone that walks through your front door. I'm sure.
Well, I think that's what you already, with excluding like small claims court where litigants they represent themselves because there's a monetary threshold. The money damages is like, some jurisdictions it's like $10,000. If your complaint is more than $10,000, you need to go get a professional, because what you'll find with just normal folks is like the rules of evidence or the procedure becomes more complicated the more complicated the allegation is. And sometimes the allegation itself is very simple, like you hit me with your car or you hurt me when I went onto your property. Like, it doesn't seem complicated, but the complication lies in the other party gets to defend themselves. Mm-hmm. And how we uncover in our world is called discover the evidence is between the parties, and the court wants efficiency. And so I think your point is really well stated. If we look way back, how were settlements or how were disputes settled? You would go in front of somebody and they would listen to both sides. They would make a decision. So very similar. Now we have complicated businesses, fact patterns. So having a level of expertise that can help both sides of the party, at the end of the day, whether you're a defense counsel or a plaintiff's counsel, your job is to represent your client so that they can understand what's about the consequence of what is happening on one side or the other. And your point about when somebody comes into my door, that's the first opportunity to let somebody know this is not an appropriate matter to bring in front of a jury or a judge. Like, this isn't a real case. And it happens frequently. You just, hey, but that's the advice you get to help them understand. Like, I know that you feel like you've been wronged or you have in fact been wronged, but there's no cause of action. I can't help you. You can't help yourself. But please go get a second opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I was thinking how realistic is it, how frequent that a complaint gets thrown out on a technicality? Is there such a thing?
No, yes, it can happen. But so at least in my world, you'll get what's called motions for summary judgment. So like, that's an evidentiary question. Like, is this the right place? Is it the right case? Is it the right place? Does this fit here? If not, like, you can get thrown out of court. There are opportunities when cases do not have merit or they don't have merit yet where they can get thrown back, worked on, and brought back. So when things get thrown out, when you hear things getting thrown out on technicalities, it's because there's some truth there. Like, it has happened somewhere. But I think for the most part, in the criminal system especially, I don't see that happen very often. Mm-hmm. Like, the system is built to get to the end of the road, and that is an adjudication.
And And you said it's the courts want to be efficient. Yeah. Do you think judges like their job?
It's a great question.
I mean, I don't see the job of being a judge as like a happy job.
Mm-hmm.
I see it as being a revered, important job. I also just project into it that they have to listen to a whole lot of nonsense. I mean, everybody's got a story.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
You know, the best judges that I've seen have a passion for the law. Like, they're really passionate about the parties themselves and making sure that the truth is delivered in the rules, according to the rules. I think that there's other people that, like everything else, like they get into the job for other reasons.
Yeah.
But when you see a judge at their best, they're forward thinking. They are able to keep a professional courtroom. So at some point, especially when certain parties are really passionate, sometimes experienced, inexperienced, they're there to advocate for their client, and the judge sees all of that. Sometimes it's done well, sometimes it's not done well, but they see it all. So you're right. I mean, it's not an easy job.
You could be a judge, right?
I would. I mean, in theory, any attorney, and in the state of Texas, if you're elected, you don't even have to be a lawyer. You can be a judge.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I balk at certain things after I came out of the Air Force.
Uh-huh.
One of them was, at the time when I was in the Air Force, it was sentencing. There were no mandatory minimums. Now we have some, in certain cases, there is a mandatory minimum, but it was left up to the discretion of the service member. You could have no punishment all the way to the maximum punishment, and the jury or the judge, if the defendant chose, would arrive at a sentence. And the reason it was important to me was it was just the conscience of the community making that decision. When I got out, and I wanted to at first be a prosecutor again, I was like, that is the job that I really appreciate, is making sure the truth is followed. I believe in mercy. So there's a lot of opportunity there for everybody. But when I got out, what I found was people can be politically motivated. They will prosecute people for reasons other than justice. And if you're not the person in charge, you will follow those orders. And it wasn't for me. So I went to the defense, and I'm a very emotional person. So like working with people and knowing that their lives are going in a certain direction, or just watching them under the strain, it's difficult. Yeah. But as a plaintiff's attorney, I get to be a prosecutor and help a person. So it's the best of both worlds, to answer your question.
Yeah.
As far as being a judge, I could probably do, if it was a criminal matter, I could not sentence somebody to a punishment. That's not a role that I would ever do. Yeah. In the plaintiff world, if I only was hearing plaintiff defense cases, that would be cool. I did sit as a judge one time in a summary court martial, and I think I sentenced the person to like 15 days in, confinement. But it's like you have between 0 and 30 days, and you know that those kinds of punishments can be, if done well, can be really meaningful for the person whose life at the end of the day, this person is going to go back into society.
Yeah.
And you want them to be a better person. You want that experience to help them begin. You don't want them, they already got problems. They don't need another problem.
Yeah. I hung out with what I'd call a Southern judge. I couldn't tell you what state he was from. I was surprised he was a judge, just because he seemed like he was just a dude that I was hanging out with. Because I tell myself a story about judges. They're scary, intimidating. They're the man. They're the law. All this stuff. He's like, yeah, I had this one kid in my court, and I'm like, boy, I know your daddy. It's like, I'm gonna just tell your daddy about this, right? Like he was, and there was a pretty seemingly wide range of authority that a judge might have to hand out a punishment or whatnot. So that I thought was cool, just the way he told us. The kid did something stupid, didn't actually, didn't result in the worst case scenario. Could have been really bad, got lucky kind of thing. But in the cases where something really bad happens, you even in a, like you say, I think where there's a plaintiff and a defendant, is that like civil court where there's not criminal, there's criminal and then civil?
The best example I can use is for, if you remember OJ's case, you had the criminal matter first.
Right. And
the criminal matter had to go first because he had constitutionally protected rights not to incriminate himself. So if you remember in the O.J. Simpson trial, he ultimately didn't have to take the stand, and in the civil trial he did.
Mm-hmm.
The only participatory event O.J. had was the glove, and you saw how big a deal that ended up being. So all of that to say, you saw it play out on O.J. He's found not guilty. In the civil realm, where the standard of the burden of proof is different, he was found guilty, and money damages were awarded.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, he doesn't go to prison over here, pays whatever the verdict was over there.
Yeah, very interesting. So I'm thinking about the owners of businesses that have exposure to risk, and like, you're obviously a really nice guy. Anybody that's watching this is gonna be like, yeah, that Chris, he's a nice guy. But I would not want to get a letter from his office, right? That somebody driving one of my trucks, somebody driving one of my trucks hit another motorist on the road. Somebody walked into my store and there was a slip and fall, or whoever, whatever else it might be. Because you are in the business of helping those people who are injured that have a complaint make that right. And first, let me ask you this. Is there ever, can you think of a circumstance where someone is damaged, like there are damages, and they go to the owner of a business or the responsible party and say, hey man, this happened. Can you just pay for my medical bills and make me whole so I don't have to sue you? Mm. And the person or their insurance company is like, yep, here you go. And we just handle it out of court without even attorneys getting involved in there being a settlement. Like,
I think that I don't know if it's the majority of the time, but it happens more often than people realize.
Okay.
And this one it's not a flattering example for the insurance industry, but certain insurance companies, if their driver, the insured driver, like, Nick,
yeah,
you have whatever insurance company, and you ran into another person, they know that you're at fault, they will call the injured person, the non at fault party, their insurance adjuster will call and say, hey, we don't know the scope of all of your injuries, but we'd like to pay something, and we'll pay $400 or $1,000. And you can see how that would be expeditious or fast. But at that stage, for some people, they're like, I just don't want to deal with it. And that's the majority of people. They're just normal people. They're not, if you're trying to just make a buck on the legal system, you're in the wrong business. That's not what you want to do. You don't want to trade your health for money. It's never
You're
a win.
saying like somebody trying to get hurt or driving, and
that's right.
Okay.
But on the other end of that spectrum, people who aren't, these are all unrepresented parties. They don't have attorneys yet. And they answer the phone. They don't necessarily know how long their injury is or if it's that bad. And so you'll find people who will settle the case for $1,000 when their damages are in excess of $500,000. And there's once the case is settled on their own, there's nothing that they can do about it. So that's the bad of it.
That's the bad of that's the insurance company trying to mitigate their loss.
Yes, they're making business decisions, and the best way for them to do it, they know on hold, the more cases they settle for the lowest amount of money possible,
of course,
so they're just doing their shareholders' job. But what we're really talking about are educated parties. So when two folks go and they want to work it out themselves, that just means that, yeah, they can come to an agreement. Or if somebody has a lot of knowledge, like in this instance, it was an insurance company, and you have somebody who doesn't have any knowledge because they don't have, that's their first wreck, like that's when things go poorly.
Because the legal system is complex, where you say like someone doesn't necessarily know the extent of damage, whether it's a car accident or even like a homeowner's claim. There's water damage in a house or in a business. Who knows where the water went? There's a leaky roof and it's down in the walls and you didn't see it come out of the walls. How do you know? Right? Okay.
And so when we get into personal injury and damages, you're talking about people who they're trying to understand, how bad am I hurt? And is there any way that I can be compensated for not just my medical bills, but if I were to say it, it's like, you have a pie. This is your life. The day of whatever the incident was, that's your whole life. And when somebody takes something from that, what's that piece of pie worth? That is damages. It's like, whether it's your lost income, whether it's your health. I think most people will take, quarters on the dollar for their health. They're not, I want a huge verdict or something like that, because most of them just want to get back to their life.
Yeah.
Your point earlier about, what helps a business. For me, the two cases that kinds of cases that business owners I've seen it handled differently, right? Mm-hmm. I love great, well-run businesses. We had a case where somebody had come on to a property believing that the property was open. It was a business and it was operating. It was closed that day. And the individual, there was construction going on and the construction area wasn't secured. So the person walked onto the construction area. And a person watching the video would be like, oh my God, how did they not see that? And you're like, well, yeah, that's true. And then you get the story behind it. It's like, this individual pulled up, the hours of operation were posted. She's like a 70-some-odd-year-old lady. She opens the door. She just gets out of the vehicle, walks up, and you can see her looking. So when you're looking here, you're not here. And fast forward, two things happen. Number one, when we originally tried to bring this injury to this company, their insurance company sent us pictures and essentially blamed our client. Like, oh, she was walking around. And this lady's such a truth teller. You're like, one, she would have told me. And two, those look like just stills. So send me the video. They won't send the video. Finally, we are forced to file a lawsuit because we need the video. We review the video. It's exactly the way I described it to you. So there was this disconnect between who was holding the evidence and the companies that are responsible. When I finally took the deposition of one of the folks that are higher up, you would probably hire this general contractor for any job. I would. I thought they were, way up here, but their testimony was, we're responsible for 100% of the job. So we made a mistake here. This is our fault. But it took all of that time for us to get to that testimony. And right before the judge was like, hey, we're having our trial setting, the case ultimately settled right before that. But to your question, like, what can business owners do? Like, I think responsible business owners have processes. They're making sure that their safety processes are followed, that they make sense. I think their training is, I don't know, you'd probably say it better than me, but their training is very well thought out for how they're taking care of their areas of responsibility. Hiring, training, supervision. It comes down to that. But what came across in the good example was this owner, they clearly had all of those things happen. And in this instance, we came to what I believe was an incredibly fair settlement, but they had to see it for themselves of what was being presented. There was a lot of in between. So that wasn't probably fair for them. And I don't know what they thought of me.
Yeah. It's one of those situations where it sucks, but it's the right outcome. Maybe. Like,
I'm hopeful that business owner, I bet if I called him today, he'd be like, Chris, that would never happen again. We will never do that again. Because their contracts are like, no, we're 100% responsible for the site at all times, even with our subcontractors. So this was an instance where they hired subcontractors to perform this punch list set of items, and the subcontractor was not of the same quality as them.
And so you've got multiple parties at play. You've got a general contractor, a subcontractor, an insurance company, attorneys presumably on both sides,
And the property business too.
and that, yeah.
So there could be a lot of this.
Well, it's a lot to sort through to get to, and there is just a process by which these things get sorted out. It's long, it's complicated, unfortunately it's expensive in some cases, but that's the way it is.
I love that a business and a contractor would care enough about the people that they work around. I think what was lost, and this was, we get into the defense of this and the prosecution, aside from that, like I get it, but the thing that you're going to hear the most often is you're going to blame my plaintiff for one reason or another. Like, she should have seen the rock, she should have done that. It comes down to responsibility, and great business owners, I think great business owners want to be responsible. Yeah. They want to know their entire operation, and they want to know that they're keeping the public safe. It is not profit over people. It is people. That's who our neighbors are. And the saddest example that I could probably give, tort reform's coming back around. Like, insurance premiums are going to continue to rise for a variety of reasons, but they're generally going to blame plaintiffs' attorneys, like, oh, there's too much money, there's nuclear verdicts. Everybody says that until it's their family member. And in Texas, there was somebody who was really a tort reform person, like drove the train. And then it came time when a company caused the death of their family member. And then he wasn't so much on the tort reform bandwagon. All I can say is, as I watch on my feed, like, people talking about, oh, my increased rates, you're talking about insurance companies that are profit centers. Like, before you look at your system of justice and talking about whether or not a plaintiff should bring a case or there's too many cases, I think there's plenty of other places for us to look. And one, being in King County, we still have virtual voir dire. It's on Zoom. And that may not seem like a big deal. I was really proud of Washington when we first came out of when we were in the pandemic. I was like, they're going to trial. Justice has to continue. But every jurisdiction I've been to since the pandemic has been ended, I'm not sure why. One reason people believe is that the resources that our state is allocating towards the courthouses and the judiciary itself, there just has to be a better way to allocate those resources, because it's not pleasant to go to downtown Seattle, and that's where all the jurors have to go, and the judges themselves have their own complications. But I think, as a proud Washingtonian now, I look around to the other states and I'm like, what are they doing? And how can we do it just as good, if not better? But in-person jury selection, like me talking to you over Zoom, I'm not getting to know you.
Right. And
we're looking for the person that is going to sit in judgment of another person or their cause. It seems worthy of our time.
I agree with you. A little bit. Thinking about what you said in the great the great business owners care about people. Right before that, you talked about systems, training, hiring practices. This is an area where we actually end up focusing a meaningful amount of attention in how we help businesses grow and scale, systematizing, right? Hiring practices, training. I would say that many of our clients face a challenge in that their company is entirely dependent on the owner, because the owner knows all the systems and the ways and so forth. And we have to take that knowledge out of the owner's head, document it, systematize it, institutionalize it. But what I'm hearing you saying is that is also a good risk mitigant. It's a way to manage or control risk, because things are. It's like the surgeons who have the checklist manifesto,
Yes,
right? That prevents, hopefully, the scalpel being left in the patient. So those checklists are really helpful. We've talked about insurance companies, just kind of talked around them, where I think we can just acknowledge everybody understands the insurance business is a business that makes money by collecting premiums, and the net profit of an insurance company's annual business is the result of the premiums it collects and the payouts that it makes and whatever's left over. So they have to collect more than they pay out to have some left over. That's just as simple as it gets. People can draw their own conclusions. So it's important to have insurance that protects the business against the failure of the systems or something happening. I've been surprised at businesses that have to sue their own insurance company to get the insurance company to step in, but the lawsuit has to occur to trigger, kind of force those things into motion. Yeah?
right.
It's as simple as that. And that's just the way the legal system is constructed. The legal system, I would say it this way, supports the economic system. Our economy doesn't function without a sound and consistent and trust and reliable legal system. We can't enter into a significant business contract, an agreement, unless I know that contract is enforceable, and that if there are damages that occur one way or the other, that I've got recourse. And just by way of operating business in the world, we know that we take on risk.
The way you're saying it, the way I hear it, is the court for our society, for our United States of America, the courtroom doors have to be open. And when you don't have open courtroom doors, that is when we see economic failure. That's when we're getting into other countries. You know it is working well when powerful institutions are held accountable. Like, I'm giving these examples of insurance companies, and everybody needs insurance. Like, I'm not saying, these insurance companies. It's not what I'm saying.
No.
What I'm saying is that our system is so fair that my neighbor down the street who was injured at a facility can file a claim, a lawsuit. First, they can ask for the money and to be repaired for their medical or whatever. But that company that she had this instance with, it is a multi-billion-dollar company. Mm-hmm. Nowhere else in the world do these two people get into the same room
on equal footing.
And yet, and granted, there's still so many more resources that this other company is going to have. Whatever you feel about the current political landscape, what I do know, there have been verdicts this last year that held powerful people in those communities accountable. That's what I know. Mm-hmm. In other places in the world, those two people never go in the same courtroom.
Right.
It won't happen. Whether it was the right decision or the wrong decision, our process allows at least a decision to be made. And it's an imperfect process, but it's a beautiful thing to watch our community want to get to the right answer, to hear the truth and make a decision that's best for everybody. That's how we know it's fair. And that's how businesses will prosper. Like, I think what you brought up earlier was such a good example of like when owners take responsibility, they want to get processes, they bring on talent to help them get there. I additionally think that businesses are going to perform well when they understand that saying I lost X amount of dollars from a claim and it was a just claim is a great outcome. Because if we're dealing with the truth, you can grow from there. But if you don't take responsibility for your actions, then we don't have a place to go. And I think any business that is going to grow and do better, like that ability to do an analysis of how can I take responsibility, checklist manifesto of everything and make sure that we're hitting, that's not just good for them, that's good for us. That's good for everybody.
I'm in agreement with that from a number of different angles. The executive leadership, the CEO, the owner of a company that has the growth mindset, that has a high degree of integrity and accountability, is going to not be happy about a financial loss, an economic loss, a loss of, anything, losing people, losing customers, losing money. But those who care about it enough to say, I want the truth and I want to be better based on that. These are the folks that we think about that have the obsession for the customer, the passion to deliver for the customer, that have an unwavering love for the people that work for them. I think of like Richard Branson says, in order of importance, it's employees, customers, shareholders. Because if I take care of my employees, they take care of my customers, and that takes care of shareholders. Mm-hmm. Where on the flip side, when we've got leaders that care first about shareholders and then customers and employees last, well, they're not investing in the training and the systems to support those employees. And so what you're saying just, I think, validates a perspective that I would have on the world. And what I see from so many, what we would call in America, small business owners, right? Companies that have, significant revenues, maybe they employ 150 people and they have $75 million in revenues. This is a small business. It's owned by, a family or a person who cares about all 150 of those employees and wants to provide them with a safe working environment, wants to do good work in their neighborhoods and for their communities, right? They're heavy equipment contractors that build roads in cities and build fire stations. And, there are these entrepreneurs in the world that want to do good. And if they make a mistake, if something happens on their watch, they're going to be accountable for that because that's who they are from an integrity perspective. And you're saying that from your experience in the world, that's what makes a good business.
That's what makes a good business. And I'm curious what you think about this, Nick. Have you ever heard somebody say, oh, I can't make that business decision because liability, like the attorney told me, and it's stopping them from making the good decision. Like they're risk averse, they're litigation averse, and there is a time for that. I get it. But I find more often than not, I question, I'm like, who's giving you that advice? Yeah. Who's giving you that advice that you're so scared to make training, hiring, supervising decisions based on what you know to be right?
Oh, I've actually never heard anyone say that they can't do the right thing because of legal advice. With the small business owners that I work with, I have seen that in large corporate America. So, I worked for big banks for a long time, and there were certain things that we might have been encouraged not to do. It'd be hard for me to think of something. But let's say aiding a person who is, we were taught CPR, for example, right? So if there's a customer that falls in the lobby, we were encouraged to help them with CPR. Maybe somebody's like, oh no, we shouldn't do that because then I'm liable for something. And like, that's just crazy to me. You got another human being here, like save their life. So no, I haven't heard it that way. The lawyers told me I couldn't do it. What I would say is, no, I actually can't even think of a situation where there's like someone is stopping themselves from doing the right thing because of, lawyer.
That's
right?
good.
There might be some things where our insurance doesn't cover that. Like I'm capable of doing it, but that would be an extent, like I'm going outside of this. But I feel like I'm grasping at straws there.
No, I love it. I think you already drew the contrast. Like you've heard of that in corporate America where you're advising, the people are getting advised big businesses, but in these small businesses where it's really a lot of different cultures that you're working with, and they may not have access to counsel that will talk to them. The reason I bring this up is like in the headlines the last couple of weeks, the current administration fired the judge advocate generals of each major branch. And the comment by, I believe it was SecDef, was he had a word that he described attorneys in the military. And I won't repeat the word, but what it comes down to is that sometimes the sentiment is that the responsibility of the military lawyer is to support the military commander, is to support the mission and give them the best legal advice. And when you get advice that is not considering furthering the mission, you've become non-essential. And so if you don't trust your counsel, this is the point. If you don't trust your counsel, then you need to look for other counsel. And so all I saw, like when I observed that as an outsider looking in, it's like you have to trust the people who are giving you your legal advice.
Yeah.
And they need to move whatever your job, and time will tell what's going on currently, but they have to move forward your business. They have to give you the parameters, help you understand the terrain so you can perform at the highest level for your business, for your community. But it needs to be great legal advice, and you know it's great because they're considering your business. They're not just like, well, I'd be concerned about that.
So it was said to me when I was a young banker by a very, very wise CFO in the bank. She said to me, the worst thing you can do is ask an attorney for their advice and not follow it. Right? And that meant something to me. And I apply that then not just to attorneys, but to all of the people who I like seek counsel from. Like I'm going to you for a reason. And if I ask you, hey, should I go left or right? And you say right. And I'm like, well, I just wanted to go left the whole time. Like, why'd I even ask? If I'm not open to having my opinion checked or my mind changed. And so then it becomes very important to have wise counsel, to have those, like you say, who you trust. Because it is not recommended to seek advice and not follow it. Right? So much more we could talk about. Really enjoyed hearing more about your story, getting to know you better. You're a good man.
Nick, I appreciate you spending time with me. I feel the exact same way.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's do it again. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.